The incoming Trump wrecking ball taking another swing at the Washington elite. President-elect Donald Trump nominating Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. Trump making the announcement on Truth Social saying, quote, Mr. Kennedy will restore these agencies to the traditions of gold standard scientific research and beacons of transparency to end the chronic disease epidemic and to make America great and healthy again. Here's a flashback to what RFK Jr. promised to do.
Don't you want a president who's going to end the corruption at the federal agencies, at FDA, at NIH, at CDC, and at the CIA? And don't you want a president who's going to make America healthy again?
There you go. That personnel move comes as Trump scores the coveted trifecta Fox News can project. Republicans have won the majority in the House of Reps, giving the GOP control of the White House, the Senate, and the House, and paving a clear path to push his agenda. His incoming director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, lays out how Trump is already leading.
I think President Trump has already shown how active he has been in not waiting around for day one on January 20th or 21st, but he's already leading. He's already engaging with so many of these world leaders around the world on the phone constantly. And he's showing the kind of leadership that the American people voted for.
You know, Dana, there's this great meme going around where they took a montage of all these media hacks saying threat to democracy, threat to democracy, and they replaced democracy with bureaucracy. And when you hear it, it seems like that is actually the reality, whether it is Pete Hegseth, Tulsi, Vivek and Elon, and now RFK Jr. It feels as though there truly is like a team of Avengers focusing on the excesses of government.
I love it. I want to see that meme. I must not have been on
I'll send it to you after the show.
Okay, I love that.
Focus, Dana.
So this morning, I was getting for Newsroom, and I was thinking, okay, what do I think about these nominations? And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to worry about it. Because by 5 o'clock, there will be something else.
Yeah.
And guess what? Now we're back on Trump time. There are 2 news cycles, maybe 3 news cycles in a day. By the time Jesse's show's on tonight and yours is on tonight, there'll be something else. So I'm just like rolling with it, and I've continued my answer to everybody who's texting me, what you think, what you think. We'll see, right? So we'll see. I like Liam Donovan on Twitter. He said, or on X, excuse me. He said, there's some 40 Russian nesting dolls of nominations happening, because you have one, you're like, oh my gosh, and then you're like, oh yeah, you like that one, how about this one? And they just keep on coming. I am thinking about one thing though, and maybe there will be a big to-do about this. Voters said the #1 issue was the economy, inflation, bringing prices down. And since the election, which was only a week and a couple of days ago, but we have all of these teams, but we don't have an economic team announced yet.
Right.
And so I'm waiting to hear that. Like, where's Treasury Commerce? Where are the prices coming down? Where's the plan? Who's the National Economic Council director at the White House? What are we doing? And I also very much want to know who is going to be the secretary for the USDA. And for RFK Jr., that's a very important position, because you don't get school lunches from Health and Human Services.
Right.
That's all done through USDA, has a lot to do with the things that he cares about. So finding out who rounds out that package to me is what I'm waiting for.
Wow. Well, those are a lot of words from someone who said, we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right, Jesse, Tulsi, a person who was put on a list and tailed by Intel services through the airport, is now in charge of all the people that were following her. Is that a course correction or a reckoning?
I love it. It's just like being at a party all week and all your best friends keep coming in. Tulsi, Vivek, good to see you. It's crazy. I can't wait to see who comes through the door tomorrow. Maybe it will be Dana Perino. You never know.
No,
You're keeping your options open, Dana. You said we'll see.
I said only ambassador to Tanzania.
Okay, we'll take that as a yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Tulsi, I like her because she's cynical. And that's what you need, is someone that's managing the intel, because let's be honest, Greg, the intel people have not been great over the last, 80 years. We missed the missiles going into Cuba. We missed the collapse of the Soviet Union. Reagan got burned. Bush got burned. It hasn't been great. They've been in bed with Fauci. The last thing they did was that they saw that Russia was building up on Ukraine's border. That's good. So she'll do a great job. And Pete, I love, because he's going to root out the DEI and the CRT.
Yeah.
And he's also going to make sure all of these weapons systems aren't just being built by members of Congress and defense contractors, because we need to invest in things that can win wars, not make people rich. I love RFK Jr. in this position because, Greg, we should be the healthiest country in the world, but we're the sickest country in the world. Why is America the sickest country? It shouldn't be like that. We should have the freshest food, the freshest water, and people should be excited about this. You have people right now, I think 30% of teens are pre-diabetic. Our life expectancy is like 6 years less than Europe because right now they poison you with the food and then they just feed you pills to cure you, and we just have to root out that corruption. I'm looking forward to people losing weight. If anybody's been at the beach recently, it's not a good look. Never used to be like this, and it's because of what they're doing to the food.
Should his first target be Trump and get Trump to let go of the Big Macs?
If
or the
Trump can do it, we all can do it.
Exactly. He should be his first project, Donald Trump. So, Judge, Jesse brings up Pete, we good friends of ours. That can't make China and Russia happy because they bank on us, using DEI to further cripple our military.
Well, the great part about it is, if you'll remember when Biden first came in and Biden went to the UN, I think it was Anthony Blinken, he went to the UN and he said, we need to know how actually racist we are, the United States. And then we have our first meeting with China. And you remember China made all these comments like, you people are racist and you want to criticize us for the Uyghurs or whatever. It's kind of interesting. I think that the selection of Pete is phenomenal, not just because I know him, but because he is an individual who is so deep rooted in his beliefs. There is no one who's going to shake him off the train that he's on. It's about, America first. It's about freedom, and it's about making sure that the American people are protected. And I think that all of these people, and I'm like, Jesse, I'm so excited every day. I just heard RFK. I'm dancing upstairs. The truth is that, we are so sick, and there is so much food that we eat in this country that we give to our children in terms of cereal that they don't allow in Europe. Why is it that they don't allow this stuff in Europe? So that some of the coloring that they use in candy and some of the garbage in cereal? Because of corruption, because of the familial relationship that some of these people in Congress have with the lobbyists. So, I am absolutely thrilled. The CDC, the FDA, the NIH, especially after what we went through with Fauci. And I just want to say one more thing. When it comes to all of these people, they're going to blow things up. And Matt Gaetz is another one who's going to blow up the Department of Justice, where the stench is so deep, they have no choice but to blow it up.
Richard, how's your week been?
That's a great question after all of these comments.
Well, I want to ask you, RFK was once a Dem. He might still be a Democrat for all I know. Is this more about a party that became so focused on one thing, which I would say is identity politics, you might disagree, that they no longer had any room for a member of an iconic Democratic family? When you lose a Kennedy, that's a statement.
I think there's a couple of things to RFK. I think one, you want somebody at HHS, no matter the political party, that's actually experienced in public health, whether they agree or disagree. I do think Judge is right. There's a lot of things in our food that we should be focused on. I'm not sure if RFK is the person to do it because I don't know what his public health qualifications quite are. And I think the role at HHS is very important to have somebody who knows all the agencies, all the things that happen. And I think, yes, you can go and you can say you want reforms, but you also have to be somebody who knows how the government functions. And that's the same way I feel about the appointment of Attorney General, or the potential Attorney General, let's see what the Senate does, of Matt Gaetz, right? Like, he's somebody who has been chaotic in the House of Representatives. Most folks in his caucus don't like him, including the former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, who he ousted, right? So is this the person that you want leading your Justice Department in a moment when, yes, you want to make reforms, yes, you want to make it better, but the problem with Matt Gaetz is he's an eyesore for the United States Congress, which makes him almost likely not to get confirmed.
Well, we'll see.
I don't know if I don't know. I would say the desire to be popular should not enter the picture You know, it's if you're going to be in Congress, you should make some adversaries.
Best friends party, then maybe you should be popular, right? And that's part of the problem in the House.
I don't know. I made it this far being unpopular.
Matt Gaetz is somebody who would take on the Department of Justice head on, and I think that's why a lot of people are pretty squeamish about the nomination. Obviously, President Trump has been sending up some nominees that I think would be disruptive to the status quo. Tulsi Gabbard, who's a friend of mine, now a Texas resident, lives near Austin. Got friends like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. These are outside the box folks that are coming up here to, challenge the status quo, drain the swamp. I think that's critically important. And, Matt would do that. And, Matt's sometimes viewed as controversial because he's pretty aggressive. He was a disruptor in the House. I agreed with him a lot, probably most of the time. We disagreed last year on the, Kevin McCarthy motion to vacate vote, for example. But Matt would go in and root out a lot of the corruption that is plaguing the Department of Justice. I'm a former assistant United States attorney. What I've seen out of the Department of Justice is criminal. And what they've done on the FACE Act to target, innocent Americans for exercising their First Amendment rights and free speech, what they've done to, target, politicians and former President Trump and others, it's pretty egregious what the Department of Justice has done. So it needs to be rooted out. And I think Matt Gaetz is raising eyebrows because he would do just that.
You still, that is, Republicans, Congressman, will have, the majority in the House, but by the same tenuous margin or close to it that you had before. And you had said that you were worried about what could happen as a result. The reason why I mention it is Mike Johnson seems to be seen as the inevitable speaker, but do you concur with that?
Well, look, Mike Johnson's a friend. We were literally just talking a few minutes ago. The Republican conference is meeting as we speak about a lot of the rules that were raising eyebrows. Yesterday, we came to a bit of a consensus, at least as maybe I'll call it a step one consensus for this team to unify. I'm proud to be a part of a team like this, but you know what? The team's got to win. We got to win the game. And I don't want to be a part of a team just for the sake of it. And the speaker knows that. We're trying to figure out how we can organize this conference for success. There's a number of members of this conference who, frankly, they want the status quo back. They want the powers that be to go behind a closed room and just drop stuff on the floor. Last year, we had multiple bills that were voted off the floor that had more Democrat votes than Republicans. We had votes on the floor that didn't have a majority of Republican votes. We spent almost $2 trillion by suspending the rules, Neil. We passed $200 billion last week on a so-called windfall elimination program that's unpaid for. $200 billion that will cause Social Security to be bankrupt 6 months earlier, stealings from people who depend on it. We can't do that anymore. People know we're serious about that. The Rules Committee and having conservatives in place matters. That's going to be critical between now and January that we get that all sorted out. But I think we're going to be able to unify as a team to advance the agenda and the mandate the American people sent us here to advance, but only if we will make sure we've got an organization in place to deliver and not do the same old swamp tactics where people just spend other people's money and rack up debt and then just walk home and say, oh, yeah, I would vote for a balanced budget amendment. Well, why don't you stop voting for all the spending that's bankrupting our country and mounting up debt for our kids and grandkids? That has to end.
It sounds, Congressman, I don't want to put words in your mouth, that Mike Johnson shouldn't be, going back and assuming the Speaker's office is his for another 2 years.
Look, again, Mike is a good friend, and we were just talking about it. I think Mike is got overall strong support in the conference. But we as a conference, regardless of what we're talking about with speakerships or leadership, we as a conference have got to come together and organize ourselves for success. That means getting the right people on committees so that we can carry out what the American people sent us here to do, advance the agenda, work with President Trump. I will be happy to work with Mike Johnson. He's a good friend. He's a good man. But let's get this conference organized to win. We're not on a team for the sake of it. We're on a team to win.
Real quickly, we're just hearing, and this is coming via Donald Trump Jr. posting on X, that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will be, quoting here, the Secretary of Health and Human Services. What do you think of that?
Well, Robert has become a good friend of mine. We have been talking now for about 3 or 4 years about what we need to do to initiate healthcare freedom. I campaigned on that 6 years ago. We need to root out the bureaucracy here, beat back the insurance companies, the pharma companies, the big hospital corporations that are rolling over the little guys. We need to root out all the corruption in this town, stop the mandates, free people up so they can have health savings accounts and go to the doctors of their choice rather than being told who to go get their health care from. I think Robert is another disruptor. We need a disruptor. I would be be glad, and I look forward to working with him. And I've got great bills and a great agenda to work side by side with Robert and Callie Means and all the other great disruptors that the president's sending to Washington.
Donald Trump's cabinet picks are a show of force as he follows through with his promise to shake things up in Washington. Let's bring in Jonathan Cott, former Manchin Communications Director, and Alex Vogel, former Deputy Counsel for the RNC. So Tulsi Gabbard saying earlier that she expects she'll probably get a rough ride in Senate confirmation. Listen here.
Of course, there's going to be resistance to change from the swamp in Washington. I think that's kind of the point. The American people are saying, hey, stop looking at yourselves, stop focusing on your own power, your own position, your own bank accounts. How about we have leaders in Washington who are actually looking out for the American people?
But I don't think Democrats are going to follow that playbook, Jonathan.
No. Look, elections have consequences, and the president gets to pick his cabinet. I don't know that many people who voted for him expected him to pick a person who most people up there believe is a Russian asset to control our national intelligence. Yes, it is a pretty wide-known secret in D.C. and Congress that she has some weird ties to Russia and parrots Russian talking points on both sides of the aisle. So she's going to have a very rough confirmation hearing from both sides of the aisle.
You know, one of the big concerns is this Codell that she went on to Syria back in 2017. Yeah. During that, she met with Bashar al-Assad twice. But people in Congress make the point that you don't just meet with your allies. You've got to meet with those who oppose you as well. Now, she did have a controversial statement where she said that Assad is not an enemy of the U.S., but back then she explained that she was just saying that Syria does not pose a direct threat to the United States. But do you think she's going to have problems, Alex?
Look, I think, first of all, no one should be surprised that the president-elect has moved really quickly to put his nominees out there, nor should they be surprised that they're people that he engaged with and supported and share his values and mission. That's what any American president should want. And the Senate will, I think, expeditiously conduct its advise and consent role. And one of the things that you see clearly, differently than 2016, President Trump understands not only this town and the White House and the Hill a lot better than he did, but he definitely doesn't want to give them the time to slow him down. So I think he wants to move quickly.
So there's still a lot of outstanding positions. I was going through them, and I went through as many as I could remember, and I still forgot three. There's Treasury, HHS, Energy, Interior, Transportation, Labor, Education, Veterans Affairs, Press Secretary, Commerce, Ag, and HUD. On top of that, who do you expect, Jonathan, we're going to be hearing about?
I mean, at this point, I think it's just people who have been close to him, and honestly, it's people who have been on this network. He seems to like people who are good on TV. He has a way he likes to operate, right? He likes people who can communicate a message well. So I think he's looking for people who I think more know how to communicate than understand the policy. Somebody like Lee Zeldin, who is actually a very good communicator. I don't know that he has a really astute understanding of environmental policy, but Lee Zeldin proved himself really well at communicating his message, and I think that's why people like him are getting picked. And I think Donald Trump, which is, you know, another reason he said he wants to float the idea of recess appointments. To your point, he does not want to get bogged down. He doesn't want to get held up. He wants to get his nominees through very quickly. So I think you're going to see them rolled out, you know, in the next couple days, but it's going to be loyalists and people who have been close to him.
You know, when you talk about having good communicators, a lot of people who head up some of these departments, and I'm saying, you know, Treasury and things like that, where you really have to have a super degree of expertise in your subject matter. Communicating the agenda is a big part of it.
Yeah.
You also don't run into problems like you did when Lloyd Austin didn't tell anybody he was going out for surgery, and everybody's wondering where the heck he was.
Exactly. So I don't think it's novel or surprising or should be looked at askance because many of these people are great communicators. Similarly, the idea that a president would want people who share his values, share his mission, and that he's close to. Look, we had JFK appoint his 35-year-old brother Attorney General of the United States because he trusted him. President Trump trusts these people, and the American public has trusted President Trump to make that decision.
And remember, you can put undersecretaries who are really the policy experts,
sure, of course,
and then you can put the figureheads at the top of the agencies who are better communicators, and I think that's what you're going to see.
Yeah, I think if you went through many previous administrations, you'd find people who were put in positions that they really didn't have a complete grasp of the subject matter, but they knew how to run things. I wanted to ask you quickly, Jonathan, Democrats are like taking the mickey out of this DOGE, this Department of Governmental Efficiency. What's wrong with trying to save a buck?
You can, but like keep in mind.
And it's taxpayer money. And there's all this duplication and waste, and we saw Langford go through earlier today a litany of why would you ever pay for that sort of stuff?
Oh, there's tons of waste, and we could absolutely get rid of it. This is a fake agency that has no authority to do anything, run by two people. Like
Simpson Bowles had no authority to do anything.
Exactly. Well, it did. It reported to Congress, and then Congress voted on it.
And Congress took the report.
Sure.
These guys are going to report to the President of the United States and the American public and say this is wasteful and we think it should be cut. I think that's totally reasonable.
But they should, there's a process they could go about doing it. They could come to Congress.
Well, the process is transparency, and they're going to get the American people on their side.
And if we had had that process, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in vis-a-vis spending. So
I think Simpson Bowles was a great plan, and if we brought it back, we'd be in a lot better shape than we were. And look, if they can find ways to cut, they should. I think they should take a much more serious approach. I don't love seeing Elon Musk saying, like, we're going to be selling merch, and then just like talking about that.
Let's get some additional information about the selection of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Health and Human Services Secretary to be the nominee for that. Correspondent Alexandra Hoff is working the story. Good evening, Alexandra.
Hi, Brett. Good to be with you. You know, in many ways, Kennedy seemed like the obvious selection for this role. But there was word then again last month from his transition team that he would actually serve in a more data-specific role. But by election night, President-elect Trump made it very clear Kennedy could have the HHS helm if he wanted it.
He's going to help make America healthy again. And now he's a great guy, and he really means it. He wants to do some things, and we're going to let him go to it.
HHS has a $2 trillion budget, includes agencies like the FDA, CDC, National Institutes of Health, and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. Even before Kennedy was nominated for secretary, Democrats were stirring.
I'll just say RFK is a crank and a conspiracist who should be nowhere near HHS.
But we've already heard some very strange things out of this administration. And we know that we're going to have to, they're going to dismantle public health.
Well, dismantle isn't the word Kennedy uses, but he has vowed to reorient federal health agencies, rid them of influence by big pharma, ban food additives, and boost research into the effects of pesticides and chemicals. Kennedy maintains he is not anti-vaccine.
I'm not going to take away anybody's vaccines. I've never been anti-vaccine. People ought to have a choice, and that choice ought to be informed by the best information.
Now, HHS provides funding and guidance in areas ranging from vaccines to gender identity issues. President-elect Trump has said upon taking office, he will direct all federal agencies to halt programs that promote medical gender treatment for minors.